Hi folks, hope all is going well with you as we start a new week with some more Hobby Nightmares. I figured I'd start with the main event, Hobby Nightmare being the first one we look at today, and that is from Ryan. And he says, "Hey North, Ryan here, ex-Games Workshop staffer who left the company in 2019. Well, good for you, sir. I left because of normal reasons, family, moving, etc., and I now live in Italy where I enjoy a very good job in graphic design." Good, man. I'm glad to hear that. The 6 or 7 years, I think it's 7, that I spent at Games Workshop were absolutely amazing, and I wouldn't trade most of them for the world. Well, that's good. I really am pleased that you're getting on with life and things are going well. I've spoken to Ryan in the Discord, in the new Discord, a little bit, so we've gotten to know each other a little bit, which is nice. Anyway, I'll carry on. When I first got to Games Workshop and I first got into my store, I absolutely, next page, dove in feet first. We did all sorts of really cool things, from worldwide campaigns like the Storm of Chaos to store campaigns. Like we had one where we had a map on the wall of our local area, but done in a Warhammer fashion. A purely here be dragons type, where you could see other people's armies on the battle map and where they were going, what they were getting up to in that week's campaign. That got so many people through the gates at Games Workshop, and we made so much money selling Warhammer Fantasy Battles because of this. Okay, just going to stop there. What Ryan is doing here at Games Workshop is showing you how to do the old world. Alright? This is what you do. If you want people to spend money on your models, this is what you do. Alright? Okay, cool. Carrying on. My manager at the time was called Kent, or at least I'll call him Kent, was an absolute chad of a human being. He would help me out loads of times by driving me to work, making sure I got there on time, because I lived quite far away looking after my elderly grandmother. Okay, that's really awesome. He would give us breaks that were really quite long, because he knew, especially on Saturdays, that things got really hectic, so he insisted that we took an hour and a half break halfway through the day so we could get to go and do our own thing. Generally, he made sure that we had half an hour to do any of our eating that we wanted to be doing, and then a full hour of doing our own models or playing on our PSPs or whatever else we wanted to do at the time. We even had a store console upstairs that we could play on in our downtime. Dude, that is how you run a store, man. That is how you do it. Wow. Alright. When Kent eventually left on to bigger and brighter things, I put my name in the hat to take over the store, and lo and behold, I only went and got the job. That was an eye-opener for me, and Kent started to bring me in with more and more responsibilities around the store in terms of, banking, locking up, making sure the accounts are done each month, that kind of thing. It was easily my least favourite part of working at Games Workshop. Me and you both, brother. Me and you both. End of the day banking on a busy day was like you're getting punished for being good at your job. Do you know what I mean? Especially if your store's really busy, and you're losing track of a few things because you're a one-man store, but it's absolutely going mental in there. And so one or two transactions go through the till incorrectly. You're down 20 or 30 pounds at the end of the day. You need to stay there till you find where that 20 and 30 pounds went. Right? And it can easily happen during the day. Things can easily get away from you if you're a one-man store. So you're being punished, literally, for your store doing well. That's how I looked at it anyway. It was ridiculous. It was horrible, But anyway, moving on. By the time Kent left, we had a nice night out where we all had a really good time, and Kent, quite teary-eyed, handed over the keys to me before moving on to pastures new. When I got there on the following Wednesday, my trainer was there to induct me into the wonderful world of the Black Jumpers. I was now officially a Games Workshop manager. The first year, or maybe even 2, went quite well, or at least the first 18 months. I was having a lot of fun times, and we were generally keeping on doing what Kent was doing without rocking the boat. It was a really easy job, and the numbers kept ticking up. Everybody knew me, and they knew I was a Kent guy, quote unquote. And because everybody loved him, I was loved via proxy. That's quite funny. And there was a guy on our YouTube comments who was saying, our Games Workshop manager lets us play games in the store, and I'm about ready to die for this man. Like, yeah, that's the kind of love you can get from your community as a Games Workshop manager if you stick to it, right? Yeah. Then, later on in my reign as a manager, we had a bit of a sea change at Games Workshop. Gone were games in stores. This happened quite slowly at first, but it tended to happen with the running down of the community whenever we did any sort of meeting. What do I mean by that? Well, they tended to talk nonsense about people who came into our stores, that they wasted all of our time, and that if they weren't buying, they needed to leave, that kind of thing. It generally rubbed me up the wrong way, because I knew that most of the really cool guys who kept my store afloat wouldn't take kindly to this kind of talk from the higher-ups at Games Workshop, but hey, it's not like I had to repeat it to them, so I kept my mouth shut. Only when I started getting visits from trainers did I start to see where the problems were going to lie. Every single time they came in, they wanted to know what I was doing with my gaming table. I had 2 gaming tables, all 2,000 point size. Along with our introduction, let me just skip that one there. I think there's a typo there. Along with our introduction table. You spelled introduction wrong, but that's fine. They wanted to know what we were doing with it, i.e. where we were going to throw it when we were done with it. I told them I was never going to be done with it because I liked playing games in my store. That was somewhat of a mistake. Yeah. Things had changed at Games Workshop, and I was told in no uncertain terms that gamers who came into my store were there to waste my time and nothing else, and that they very rarely bought anything. The thing is, I'd done my homework and my research, and I had the numbers to back myself up. I made a note of everybody who came into the store, what they spent and when, and this took me a long time to get on an Excel spreadsheet, but I showed my higher-ups, my trainers, just who spent what in the store, with all of the gamers marked in bold, and wouldn't you know it, most of the people who came into my store to buy and support the store financially were people playing games in the store. Again, this didn't go down very well, and I was told, to my face, that I was now being obstinate, and that doing things like this was a waste of my time and energy when I could be doing other things for the store. When I inquired as to what these things might be, they had no answers for me. Again, this is in mid-2019, where I think most of the no games in stores crowd were actually coming in hot and heavy. I know you left before this, but I'd like to know from your own experience when you started to feel this pressure to not have games in your store. Okay, so in my store, it was pretty much straight away. Because I didn't... So at the end of 8th edition's release, that's when I took over my new store. So 8th edition came out, and I took over my new store. This is why the following summer, when I was asked, why aren't you doing that as well as last summer? I just said, we released 8th edition last summer. Like, what, you want me to sell more now than what we sold when you had a worldwide release of 8th edition, right? Okay, what did you bring out this month? Nothing. Nothing. Right? The Old Earth book, maybe. I don't know. It was something ridiculous like that. It was like a really slow month for releases, and they were like, why haven't you brought in this much money? It's like, well, dude. Because, like, you haven't brought out a new edition of 40k this month. You know what? Anyway, yeah, so it was pretty much straight away with me. It was straight away, no games in the store. If you do games, you're going to get into trouble, right? Then that was it. But I think the difference between my situation and yours, Ryan, is I'd gone from by the time you have this problem. Do you know what I mean? So it seems to me that it's like a cancer, right? At the start of my time there, the cancer was just starting to spread of no games in the stores. And then when you're there, it's like the body's now riddled with it, and there's no getting away from it, and you will literally get into trouble for it. Yeah, Anyway, I'll carry on. Take a sip here if you want. Okay, thank you very much, I will. Well, no, and you know what? I just talk for a bit, so I'll carry on. I'll break it to you gently. I lasted only another 3 months in the job before my girlfriend, who is Italian, decided she might want to move back home and that she wanted me to come with her. I treated this as a get-out-of-jail-free card. I had very good savings, a degree in graphic design, and wanted to use it for my own ends. So, once we had a flat sorted out, we were renting from her uncle, so we got really good rates in and around Rome. Dude, you lucky, lucky pup. You lucky bastard. I handed in my notice, and I was on my way. My trainer made it very, very, very clear to me. My trainer made it very, very clear to me that me leaving was no big thing, and that he was kind of relieved, actually, that he didn't have to keep giving me disciplinaries or anything like that, or explaining my behaviour to higher-ups at HQ. When I queried him what kind of behaviour he was talking about, because I've never had a complaint from any of my staff or any of my customers, he explained gaming in the store was the one thing that made me stand out negatively from my other peers as managers, who quite rightfully were getting on with it and getting gaming out of their stores. Dude, why didn't you query? And do you know what? I can't say this, actually, because I didn't either. But why didn't you query it? Why didn't you say, when you know you're leaving, why can't I have games in stores? Because I know they come back with the same thing, right? Gamers are time vampires. But I guess there's only certain things you can say. Once you've given them the actual evidence that you had there, then when you had that list with the people who buy stuff in your store, right? Once you've given that to them, you basically take away their entire argument, so now they can only be obstinate and cruel. That's all they have left is intimidation after that. Do you know what I mean? Like, if they come to you and say, well, we know that gamers don't really spend money in stores because we know better than you, and that, you know, we know that, so you need to follow what we say. But if you come back with, like, actual fact and say, no, actually, these are the facts. This is what people do in my store. Like, I'm right and you're wrong. Once you've done that, you kind of... You've ripped the mask off them. And so now they have to be mean-spirited with you. And start bullying you and start trying to get you out of there. Which I think is what's happened to you here. But, you know, is what it is. I'll carry on. Don't feel bad for me. Things went very well in life, and I got my time out of Games Workshop. I got mine, I worked for the company, and that was a major bugbear off my back. But if you are thinking of working for Games Workshop and you're listening to this, think again if you like gaming. If you want to work in a glorified Apple store where you sell models instead of phones, this is the place to be. Cheers, Ryan. Okay. Well, I get with you on that. I get with you on that, man. I'm with you on that one. Yeah, it is a shame. It is very much a shame. But thanks for sending that in. And if you are a Games Workshop manager or ex-staffer who wants to get in touch, then make sure you do so on hobbynightmares@gmail.com. It's always good to have a talk with old colleagues. It's always nice to chew the fat. Anyway, Anton says, hi again, North. Before you read this, please just call me Anton. Okay, fair enough. This is a very quick one, but it's a mad one. I started wargaming about 15 years ago. I'm from your native Liverpool, and the shop in the Liverpool Central was a weekly fixture for young Anton. Alright, last thing, I live in Liverpool, I'm not from Liverpool. Okay? I just live here. Alright? I just live here, but I'm not from here. I was actually born in London. So there you go. I was actually born in London. And I was raised on the Wirral, which is very, very, very close to Liverpool, but it's not Liverpool. So there we go. Back then, gaming was allowed in the store, and 5th edition was in vogue, and I had an Imperial Guard army. I got a box set and some basilisks. Basilisks? What is wrong with me? What is wrong with my face? Back then, gaming was allowed in the store. 5th edition was in vogue, and I had an Imperial Guard army. I got a box set and some basilisks. And back then, online retailing was quite rare, so if I wanted anything else, I had to beg my parents to dump a wad of cash on me for Christmas. Anyway, I've only encountered 2 truly miraculous people in this hobby. Sorry, not miraculous, malicious, people in this hobby. One is a veteran that used PTSD, post-traumatic stress disorder, as an excuse to start arguments with people over rules. Which you have made a video about, of course, in the past. Yes, don't use mental illness as an excuse to be a dick to people. That is a weak-ass thing to do, and will get you kicked into the sea quicker than I can say, let's drink some Yorkshire tea. The other was a fat tunnel-visioned loser that refused to play me. You'll hear why in a moment. I was in the upstairs part of Liverpool Games Workshop, waiting for people to ask for a game. I got paired with a tall but fat fella, who was in his mid-20s. I was no older than 14 at the time. My Imperial Guard army was small, but I sidestepped the normal force organisation and went for veteran squads with integrated las cannons, which was all perfectly legal. I had a command squad too, but you were allowed at the same time to have them regardless of troops' choices. I never had enough miniatures to even think about conscripts. Anyway, I show this loser my handwritten list, and he had a bit of a chat with me. He had an AC/DC t-shirt on, and at the time, I liked that band, so we talked about them for a little bit, and then the force that I had brought that day. It doesn't seem to be too bad so far. He firstly said that I had completely pulled my list out of my arse, and then wouldn't take on board that veterans were a troop choice that could be taken instead of and not additionally to the normal platoon structure. But he wasn't having it. I explained twice, and he overruled me. I actually felt intimidated by him, and we were alone in the gaming room. After realising that I didn't have enough miniatures to play with a regular infantry force, he literally screamed at me about it and left the shop. I was upset and later shook, not because of him, but because he was actually mistaken. I was right, I had looked it up. In 5th edition, the Guard could have veterans as their troop choice. Thinking back, I can only rationalise his actions as him having issues with interpreting things or being up to his own arse that he was bound to clash with people like clockwork. I never saw that guy again in the shop, but I never told anybody except my parents. They advised me to not play with him, and I continued to go to Games Workshop until I abandoned it in 6th edition. Anyway, I did live happily ever after. Not sure about that loser though. Have a good one, mate. Anton. Dude, this is so common, is that people don't, especially younger lads, right? If you spot a younger lad, right, and he's there, and he's getting in on that 40k action, which he's right to do, by the way, and he knows something about his army, hear him out. Just look at his rules with him, right? Say to me, hey man, let's go get that codex and you can show me, because I wouldn't mind using that. Even if you've got no interest in using it. Okay, just, there are ways and means to do this. This guy obviously had some mental issues going on, but not that it's an excuse, but you know what I'm saying. Anyway, Brett says, hi North. Hello Brett. In the summer of 1992, I was in the lower 6th form, which is college for those of you in America. I thought, successfully dodged a week of work experience by signing up for a week's residential creative writing course run by a liberal English teacher, on which there would be me and about 10 attractive girls getting in touch with our feelings. Dude, I love this guy. I love this guy. I love this guy. He's an animal. He's an animal. I love him. Oh, this is great. Unfortunately, the week before the course began, the venue had a fire and the whole thing got cancelled. I was informed I needed to find work experience ASAP or they would find something for me. In a blind panic, I called the Games Workshop in Croydon and asked them if I could do it there. They said fine, and I got my college office to take it from there. Dude, that's great. You're lucky. And by the way, remember when we were saying where I was born before? I was born in Croydon. Yeah. Mayday Hospital. I think it's University Hospital now. I was born in Croydon. There you go. The names have been changed here because A, I can't remember all of them, and B, don't want to get anyone into trouble. Though I don't think any of these people still work at Games Workshop, I wouldn't be surprised if they did. So, on the first day I walk into the shop in Croydon. Out in the back of the Wit Gift Centre. I'm not sure if it's still in the same place. I haven't been back there since. My mates and I always used to go to the Brighton store as it was safer and we could play arcade machines on the pier afterwards. That was a bit farther away. Dude, not a bit, it's much farther away than Croydon. Jeez. There are 4 people in there. The manager, Fraser. Okay, he was Scottish. Tony, the other employee, a long-haired rocker. And 2 other work experience kids. We'll call them Dave and John. On the first day, Fraser gets us to hoover, sort the stock room out, and restock the shelves. In between all that, we play a couple of customers for Warhammer 40,000 and paint some of the shop's army. Fraser is pleasantly surprised that John and I are reasonable for 1992 at painting miniatures. At various points in the day, Tony would just stand outside the open door on the pavement, and if an attractive girl was walking past, would summon Frasier. Frasier would wheel himself over. He was in a wheelchair, a point I wasn't sure about mentioning because it makes it obvious if you ever went in there exactly who I'm talking about. Well, you have done now. He'd go out onto the street and then verbally assault the passing girl. What? What? I quote, "I'd play with that till it broke, and my third leg works just fine." Oh my god. What is this? What is this? And Tony would just stand there and laugh. Second day, Frasier turns up with his human 3rd edition a battle army and demands that I help John, the real artist between us, paint his personal army. He makes us paint his army for the rest of the week. John does all of the freehand fancy stuff, and I do all of the base coats and washes. Dave is sadly relegated to doing all the menial work in the shop. Verbal assaulting of passing girls continues. At about 11 o'clock, Tony goes out, and Frasier says he has something to do in the back, but that if anybody comes in for a game, we can get out the shop miniatures. 10 past 11, and a middle-aged man comes in, looking a bit like a mad professor, in a big coat for mid-June, carrying his 40k army, and stands by the gaming table in the middle of the shop. He doesn't say anything, he just stands there. And stands there. It seems like an age before I decide to go over to him and ask him if he needs anything. He looks at the floor and mumbles, I want to play 40k. I notice the hideous smell, but keep it together. We get out the Space Marines, and the man we later discover was called Trevor, gets out a Space Orc army involving a lot of Orc models glued into toy cars. He then proceeds to cheat as much as possible every single turn, but since I just want this to be over, I don't really mind and pretend not to notice. Halfway through, he gets out sandwiches that make the smell even worse. I power through though, and eventually he just leaves. At this point, Frasier comes out of the back and says, "Oh, thank fuck for that. Avoiding Trevor has made my week." Tony expresses similar sentiments when he returns 10 minutes later, smelling of McDonald's. The following day, it was hot. There is a comic shop over the road. I can't remember what it was called, but we had a big water fight with them in the middle of the road. I think that was the highlight of the week for me, at least. That sounds really cool. At least, and all the nerds are getting a wash. Brilliant. Fantastic. Add some soap in there and we got a winner. The area manager also came in to see how things were going. His name was Graham, and he had a long blonde ponytail and sounded like a bit of a geezer. The thing he did was go ballistic about the fact that we had Metallica on in the shop, and launched into a shouty rant about only being allowed to play the officially sanctioned bands, Drock and Bolt Thrower. I don't know how he found out about it, but he then told us off for the water fight with the comic shop. Maybe somebody had complained. On Thursday afternoon, a man came running into the shop with massive gashes in his forearm and shoulder, and John nearly passed out. He was bleeding everywhere and was asking for help in a panic. Of course he did, you're in Croydon. I looked around and Tony had vanished. Frasier just looked at me and said, "No," and then wheeled off into the back, leaving me with a guy who, for all I know, was about to bleed out on me. John went to call an ambulance, and I tried to calm the guy down. It turned out he'd been attacked round the corner by 2 muggers, but had gotten away with some injuries. I followed Frasier into the back. He gave me a roll of toilet paper and reluctantly followed me back to the shop. He looked up at me and said, "Why do they always come in here?" Oh, okay. This is a regular occurrence then in Croydon. He took over the telephoning of the authorities, and I tried to stop this guy from bleeding out with some toilet roll, and I got blood on me. I got blood all over the shop. It was going right into the carpet too. The ambulance and some police arrived and took the man away. Frasier went and got some cleaning stuff and said, "Well, you've already got blood on you." Oh, this guy's a piece of work. I know he's got a wheelchair, but come on, dude. I started cleaning up, and he added, He might have hepatitis. There's no fucking way I was touching that guy. At least he shut the shop till it was cleaned up, and then let me go home early. I didn't go in on Friday, and nobody complained to my college. I heard sometime later, Fraser had dated somebody in my A-level chemistry class, that Games Workshop had fired him for an incident, and that they were no longer accepting work experience kids. I'm going to put 2 and 2 together there, and say that one of the work experience kids that came in was a girl. At that stage. Oh my days. And that is the end. So I think it's been an entire episode of Games Workshop staffers behaving badly. It really has been. But, you know, we haven't had a Games Workshop episode for a long time, so there we go. Not a dedicated one anyway. We've had 1 or 2 stories. I've not had a dedicated video. We've had more than one, so there you are. I'll be back tomorrow, where we're going to be talking about... I asked, and you replied. We will be talking about what your Warhammer 40k army says about you. That's not going to be controversial at all. But there we are. Love you all long time. Have a wonderful rest of your day. And I'll speak to you soon. Have a good one. Bye now.